Monday morning to you all. Yes, thank you all for tuning in. This is Connect Your Audio. I am your host, David Gregors. Going to do it again today. Got it all the way turned up to 11. The Stunning and Brave is just off the charts. So, again, if you find yourself breaking out into cold sweats, literally shaking right now, it's all perfectly normal. The doctors say that should subside very soon. No need to call an ambulance. No need to make a doctor's appointment. You do not have the coronavirus. You are merely in the presence of sheer, unadulterated, stunning bravery. So, so thank you again. I hope you all had a great weekend. It was an interesting weekend for me. We did the weekend repose number 2, where we talked about a little bit about the simulation theory. This is going to be the first of, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 discussions that I have on that. I wanted to get a little bit more research in, but I'll go ahead and lay out the basis for it, and that's what we did in weekend repose number 2. So today's show is going to be a little bit different. So in the past week, I've been trying to be a little bit more streamlined in the formatting, trying to do 2 or 3 topics. But what I'm finding as things are going along is that this election is so crazy, and the things that are surrounding the election are all so crazy and so maddening that I'm finding that the topics are bleeding together a little bit too much, especially coming out of the weekend. There really wasn't much news other than this sort of thing. So today we're just going to kind of blend in and out of a bunch of different topics. It's not going to be one of these that I try to put on YouTube as a little sound bite or whatever, unless by some chance I happen to get lucky and get a good little 5-minute segment that sort of stands alone. But I don't think I'm going to. I think that it's time for some truth to be spoken. And so when I started on this endeavor to start a podcast and all of this, it was right after the November 3rd election. Actually, it was a little bit before that. For a couple of years, I've been feeling a calling to get involved, to get my voice out there, to do my little part for truth and for righteousness and for patriotism and for the right course for this country. And so I've been looking for things to do, and the most obvious thing that I could think of doing, I'm not really interested in running for office. So the most obvious thing I could think of would be to educate people in terms of the founding of the country, what it's all about, and also educating you on the current political situations. I noticed how much dishonesty there was out there, and I really wanted to be a buffer against that. What I did not anticipate, you see, I've been a Trump fan since the election, since 2016. I've been a Trump fan, but just because of the nature of things, of how things go, and all of that, my universe was particularly narrow in terms of the other people that were around me who were fans of Trump, who liked Trump, who voted for Trump. It was a fairly narrow universe that I was in, and so I took for granted that all of the lies and the dishonesty and everything existed solely on the left. And as I explained in Weekend Repose number 2, what I have found in wading into the Twitter, the social media, trying to inject myself into some of these things, is that we actually have a very serious problem with the truth on our side as well. So this show is, I started this show not with any agenda of doing anything other than just, as I said, educating, speaking out, giving my opinion, hopefully putting a different view on things and try. But what I'm finding, especially in Twitter, but even more so on this show, is I'm spending an awful lot of time having to correct bad information that's out there, and I think that that's an issue that perhaps many conservative talk show hosts also have to deal with. I'm not exactly sure. I've only really got a history with a handful of them, but I feel like I'm the one who is more consistently taking it on because, and maybe because I'm still trying to build the show and I'm still trying to talk to people who have the opinions. So really and truly, I haven't had an experience with the, I guess what you would call, maybe some people would call the alt-right. I wouldn't use that term because I don't know what it means. Maybe you would call it the QAnon people. I don't know. I see a lot of hashtags and a lot of acronyms. People who follow me and the people I follow as well. Really, the only thing I was ever looking for was Make America Great Again. I was looking for the people who were definitely in the MAGA camp. And so what I have found is an awful lot of people who are, in almost every sense of the word, extremists, but they're not ideological extremists. They are, and I hate to use this word because it's been accused of me too, and I hate it then, and I hate to even use it, but it's a cult of personality almost around Donald Trump. And so I think that's the wall I've hit with Twitter, is that I've run into a bunch of people who are true believers in the personality of Donald Trump. I think I've also run into a few bots, and I think I've also run into some grifters who, and I again hate that word too. I think it's being overused a lot, but I don't know of any other word to use other than to call them grifters. These people who put on the MAGA hat but don't actually believe in anything, but they really want you to come and, click like on their page and follow their tweets and go and visit their Teespring store and shop for t-shirts, or go see their website, which is so loaded down with ads that you can't even possibly navigate. And I actually called one of those cats out this weekend. So it's been an interesting experience because I haven't known my side to be this dishonest. I mean, truly, the last real time that I ever engaged in politics as a group activity was all the way back in high school. I just graduated high school. It was back in 2000. I volunteered for a local campaign for Congress. It kind of doubled as a George W. Bush campaign office, and my friends and I, we would talk about politics and everything, and we were all very rational about things. But the point is, I never really got exposed to any of the sort of extremists, these really, really angry people who I keep coming in contact with on Twitter. So this is really, it in every way is a new experience for me. I never set out to do this show to correct truth or to correct dishonesty or to steer anyone in the right direction other than what I believe the right direction for the country is and the right direction for our history, our historical course. I've never set out to do anything like that, but I increasingly find myself having to do it. And I think back to when the Fox News channel first started. I'm old enough to remember this. The Fox News channel first started, and its whole thing was, we report, you decide. Now let's just forget for a moment all of the crap that the Fox News channel did, all the things that they were wrong about, where they definitely were partisan. And let's go back to the very beginning where they did try to cut it right down the middle. And all I can think of was Bill O'Reilly. Now, Bill O'Reilly has since been run off of the Fox News channel, and I think he's at Right Side Network or something. He's trying to do his own thing, which good for him. Best wishes to him and all that, because I actually do respect him, and he would tick people off because he was trying to cut things right down an ideological center. He was no spin zone is what he called it. He's not going to give you the spin. He was just going to tell you what's going on, and you can decide for yourself. He was going to give you his analysis as fairly as he could, try to give you both wings of the analysis, and he became, over time, the number one rated primetime news show. It's actually an opinion show, but it was in the news. It's considered a news show, and he was a juggernaut for pretty much until they ran him off the air. So I'm not attempting to emulate him, but I at the same time feel that there's an important lane that he may have vacated, just even though he's still out there, even though he's got more people listening to him. I still feel the need with my platform to do something similar. So let's get into it. We'll get to the heavier stuff, but I just want to go ahead and get started. The big news over the weekend was that there was a rally held in Valdosta, Georgia, the first rally since the presidential election that Donald Trump has held. Valdosta, Georgia is a beautiful, beautiful town all the way at the Georgia-Florida state line, right dead in the middle of the state. Interstate 75 runs down it. I lived in Valdosta as it was where I went to undergrad. I love Valdosta. It's a azalea city. So if you love azaleas, come March or April or May, depending on when they bloom, the whole city is just full of them. It's beautiful. It's a very conservative city, but it has a university in the middle of it that's fairly decent size, Valdosta State University, and it definitely imports its fair share of radical leftists, many of whom I know, and they're very good at organizing politically and organizing the students and all of this. And so Valdosta is a little bit of an odd town just because of that dynamic. But Trump landed at the airport there and did another one of these airport rallies. And he did pretty well. And so I wanted to talk just a little bit about it because it was a bit of an interesting view. Now, he's doing this in the shadow. The reason he was doing it was because of the two runoff elections for the United States Senate. So these two elections are going to determine which party controls the Senate. And given the fact that the Democrats have threatened some rather extreme proposals, including packing the U.S. Supreme Court, passing a Green New Deal, so on and so forth, the importance of these two races could not be more obvious. And so you have yahoos out here like Lynn Wood and Sidney Powell, who, by the way, I have to go back to the very beginning and say this was a big nothing burger. I've seen almost no evidence produced by either one of these people, and I think that Sidney Powell has completely wrecked her reputation. Lynn Wood has completely wrecked his reputation, and I just don't think that anyone should continue to listen to them until they produce something good and something worthwhile. But both of these yahoos have told people not to vote in the runoff election. Now, the people who have designated Lynn Wood as the golden calf of the Trump era, I guess. It seems to me like there's Lynn Wood to some of these people as part of the Godhead of the Trinity. I mean, he's beyond reproach as far as some of these people are concerned, and it's so crazy to me because he has done so little in terms of moving the ball on this campaign. He gets kicked out of court almost as soon as he gets in there. It's not because there's a bias against him or anything. It's because he's not producing any evidence. If he had it, we would know about it. We'd be talking about it, but he's not. But anyway, he has been out there, and Sidney Powell have been out there saying, don't vote until Loeffler and Perdue demand a special session of the legislature so that Georgia's electors can be awarded to Donald Trump, despite the fact that it appears Biden won the votes after multiple recounts. We don't know truly what the fraud situation is. It sounds like I've heard a lot. We talked about it on Friday. I've heard a lot of accusations. I've seen a lot of the affidavits. I've seen a lot of the evidence that's been provided. Seems to me that there's really the biggest source of it is this signature verification. That's really the best chance of anything getting through, because at this point we can talk about fraud all day long, but if we can't prove it, then we're wasting our time. I mean, we need to start thinking about how we can reform the system with voter ID, with biometrics if we need to. I say get rid of early voting. Just do away with it altogether. Go back to the old days of absentee ballots, and if the ballot isn't there on election day, it doesn't count. But we don't have a whole lot of these issues in Georgia. We have some other issues, but we don't have a whole lot of the stuff like we were seeing in Pennsylvania, where the laws got shifted at the last minute, and maybe they weren't obeying the court orders and all this. So, so there's been a lot of evidence of this, and or not as much evidence as they think. And so what Lynn Wood and Sidney Powell have been doing is encouraging Georgia voters to say, we're not going to vote unless the legislature gets called into session and they change also the way that the runoff voting will be done. And all of that sounds like it's well intentioned, but number one, I'm not exactly sure what Lynn Wood and Sidney Powell are hoping to accomplish by calling the state legislature back into session. I know Trump thinks that it's going to result in him being awarded Georgia's electors. I think the legislature is probably avoiding it because they don't want to go on the record. They don't want to make a vote. They don't want to be forced to vote against Trump. And I think that's exactly what would happen, is that they would be forced to vote against Trump. Because here's the hard truth. I don't think there has been enough evidence shown to completely overturn the electors or the election results and appoint a new set of electors in Georgia. I think there's a very strong chance of it in Pennsylvania. But the Trump campaign isn't even talking about Pennsylvania anymore. There was an interview earlier yesterday with Rudolph Giuliani, and he said he's focusing on Pennsylvania, Georgia, Wisconsin, Nevada, and Arizona to accomplish their thing. They're not even talking about Pennsylvania anymore. So when that's the backdrop of all of this, there's a very important Senate election, and Trump came to tell people how important it was that they go out and vote. Trump seemed somewhat sanguine, and it was sad. It was a little bit sad. I was sad for him. Again, I'm a huge Trump fan. I am looking at my Make America Great Again hat that is perched atop my guitar, Ophelia. I have a sign in the garage that we had for Trump. I've donated money multiple times to Trump. I have the tumblers. I mean, I'm all in. I get 47 text messages every day. Once those dry up, I don't know what I'm going to do with myself anymore, because my phone, I'll feel like I don't actually know anyone, because my phone won't be making a sound every 30 minutes with Don Jr. sending me a text telling me that his dad was looking for my name on a list. So Trump was a little bit sanguine. It was a sad situation, because this is a guy who I think that there's a fair case to be made that he was cheated out of this election. I think even in the popular vote, where the popular vote has run up to 8 million or so deficit, I think there's a good shot that he was cheated out of this election. And I know there is a great sense of injustice, and we'll get to the injustice before too long. But I want to talk about the rally itself. So he did well. He gave basically the same speech, and he made the comment of, I don't know how to give this speech for other people. I'm used to doing it for myself. And a nice sized crowd there at the Valdosta Airport. I've never been to the Valdosta Airport, and it's kind of off the beaten path. It was never anywhere that I've ever, but I think I've driven by it. I think it's like a little regional airport, and it was quite a crowd. It looked to be maybe, I don't know, between 25 and 50,000 people there. It's hard to tell. It was a good crowd, and they were amped up, and they loved their president, and as well they should. They were not so interested in the Senate race, which is a little discouraging. The Senate races, that's discouraging. It's because that's the last best hope to preserve some of Trump's legacy is to keep a Senate in place that is filled with Trump allies. And so, you had the chance of 4 more years and fight for Trump and we love you, all of this. It was very beautiful. And the more these chants went on, the more into it he got, the more impassioned about the whole thing he got. You can tell he's angry about the election, and I don't blame him. He has every right to be. I am too. Everyone else on our side is, and that's perfectly good. That's perfectly healthy. It's just a matter of how we harness that, and I think Trump is going to harness it just right. But he was struggling because this was his speech, this was his campaign speech. This is why he should be reelected. And win, lose, or draw, he didn't need to give that speech anymore. He was having to talk about it to someone else, or about 2 other people. So when you're doing that, when you haven't really written a new speech, you're just kind of trying to give your speech, and you're kind of pissed off about the election, and oh, by the way, vote for Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue. That's kind of how it came off. It was they were a little bit like side notes, but he did make some really good points. I mean, he did land some fairly heavy points, and one of them was saying that these runoffs are probably the most important congressional runoffs in American history. And I actually agree with this. I mean, this is a fairly narrow category, right? The congressional runoff. Not everybody does runoffs. But I can't remember ever a time in my lifetime in which you had 2 Senate seats going up at the same time from the same state in a scenario where the Senate control hangs in the balance. So right now it's a 50-48. If the Democrats pick up those 2 seats, it'll be 50-50 with Kamala Harris presumably casting the tie-breaking votes. So really all we need is 1. If we only get 1 though, then you're having to worry about Murkowski in Alaska, Susan Collins in Maine, Romney in Utah, or wherever the hell he pretends to be from today. That's what you're left with. So if you only get 1 of them, you're really relying on none of those 3 to break ranks, and I don't think that's by any means a solid bet. And I think you can kind of throw Lindsey Graham in that category too. He's a little wishy-washy about being wishy-washy, so he's a little hard to trust. But so I actually agree with him. That this is the most important congressional runoff in the United States history. He expressed his condolences for Harrison Deal, who and the family of the Loeffler family and the Deal family. So Harrison Deal was killed in a car accident. He was actually the boyfriend of Governor Brian Kemp. He was also working on the Loeffler campaign. So he expressed the condolences. You might be saying, why in the world am I mentioning this? We'll get there. Melania was there. She looked stunning as usual, but really it was a surprise to see her there. So it just told me they were pulling out all the stops. I think this shows how important these 2 elections are. What else? Yes. So he did spend some time to call out Brian Kemp and Raffensperger. I don't forget what his first name is, saying they need to be. Raffensperger doesn't know what he's doing. Kemp needs to be stronger. Again, this is quite a different tone than what the last rally in Georgia. I believe it was in Macon. He may have done one since, but the last one I saw in Georgia was in Macon, and he was saying very nice things about Kemp, because Kemp was one of the first ones, along with DeSantis in Florida, to open up the state after the COVID. And I made a note here, and I said it's on brand for Trump to talk about himself and the election rigging, but since the boycott is being done in his name, is this the right tactic? And I think I've already covered this point here, but I do think that was more of a result of him being uncomfortable giving the same speech that he would normally give on the stump when asking for your vote for himself rather than asking for your vote for someone else. He did ask that the people call their representatives and end Section 230, to end the protections for the social media companies that treats them as keeps them from being treated as publishers when they exercise editorial control over things, so they can't be sued for like libel and defamation. Trump said that the last number he heard for the Supreme Court was 24 additional justices that would all essentially ride through the circuit, and it would act like I guess more like a regular federal appeals court where they have 30 something judges and only 9 of them sit at any one time, and or 3 of them in the appellate court circuit, so only like 3 of them will sit at any one time, and you never know which 3 you're going to get. And if you want an appeal for all of the court to hear, you have to ask for an en banc, ENBANC, en banc review, to have the entire slate of justices look at it. It sounds like that's what they're wanting to do. Trump said Loeffler, nobody fought harder for him. Trump said the boycotters are enabling the radical left to win. In terms of Purdue, he gave a nice story about going to where I'm from, Purdue and Isaacson at the time, to Southwest Georgia after Hurricane Michael, I think was the name of it, or Matthew. I can't remember which one, but it came through. It hit the Albany and Southwest Georgia area as a Category 4, which is unheard of that far inland. And it just decimated the pecan orchards and everything else. And he talked about Purdue really pushing for the money to get more money than they expected, and all of this. So it was very nice case, very nice testimonials Trump gave about both Loeffler and Purdue. And there was a lot of noise made about the fact that the when he turned the mic over to Loeffler and Purdue, the crowd was chanting "Fight for Trump, fight for Trump," all of this. I don't know how helpful any of that is, and this is where I want to get into the whole truth telling thing, where I want to tell you what I think is true, and I think it's time for MAGA country to start accepting some of these things as true. If it turns out that what you want to hear is not actually the truth, then by all means feel free to turn the show off and unsubscribe. You're not going to hurt my feelings. If I'm only talking to myself, telling the truth, then I will be satisfied. So, here goes. Trump supporters need to come to accept that Donald Trump is not going to be inaugurated on January 20th of 2021. It's a very, very hard thing, I know. I know so many of us have been emotionally invested in this man who, at all times, put America first. He connected with his voters in a way that I don't remember anyone else on the Republican side doing. And he is definitely a special person for our party. I think he's given us a lot of great lessons in terms of how to handle the news media, how to handle our opponents. He's given us some lessons of what not to do, I think, as well. But he has certainly blazed a trail, whereas people like Mitt Romney and George W. Bush and John McCain were much more interested in currying favor with the other side. Donald Trump was not interested in it. He was absolutely always interested in doing what was right, in his view, for the country. Again, I am not a Trump hater. I'm not a liberal, no matter what anybody on Twitter says. It's fine if you want to say that. But what I'm seeing, rather than let's start coming to grips with this and let's focus our attention on the things that we can change, number one being the 2 Senate races in Georgia. What I'm seeing is rationalization. What I'm seeing is anger and blaming and all all the signs and symptoms of grief after a tragic loss. Um, and it's all understandable. It's all understandable. I don't hold anything against you guys. I really don't. But what I do want people to start doing is, number one, let's start focusing on the things that we can change. First and foremost being the two Senate elections, yes, in Georgia, the two runoffs. The second thing is voting reform. We need secure voting reform, and every single one of us needs to be demanding it. I think it's too late for 2020. I really do. Even the runoff in 2021, I don't think they can change things fast enough. I may be wrong, but we are less than 30 days, and most laws take at least that long to do. I I will tell you right now, right here, right now. I don't care if we are on the same side in terms of the presidential election. If you are calling for martial law and a new election, I am not going to entertain that. Period. The end. It's a terrible idea. It's not what America stands for, and I will not tolerate it. Martial law is not the answer. So you can just forget that. Again, if you don't like what I'm saying, you can turn me off and you can unfollow me and you can unsubscribe, and you won't hurt my feelings one bit. But the two things that we can focus on right now are the most important things: the Senate and fixing the voter situation, the voter security. I don't think any votes should be done on computer. As I said before, I think the mail-in voting should be done away with. I think absentee ballots should go back to the very strict construction of it, in terms of you have to request it and it has to be received on election day, or it's not counted. I would get rid of early voting, or if you're going to have it, then give everyone a chance to easily correct their vote if they decide they don't want to. But I generally don't like early voting, simply for the fact that you had people voting before the first debate even happened in the presidential election this time, and it's just there too much changed between the first ballots being cast and actually election day. So and kind of it makes sense, right? Because there were a lot of stories about how the top trending searches on Google were, how can I change my vote after the second debate? And that sounds an awful lot like people who voted early, people who voted by mail, having a little buyer's remorse, and maybe they never actually got to change their vote. And maybe some of these votes are actually legitimate. So I need for people to stop focusing on the election and trying to come up with ways that Trump actually won, when it appears that he did not. So hard truths, I know. And the reason that I'm saying this is because I have been seeing a series of increasingly ridiculous conspiracy theories, I guess, for lack of any better reason, or the lack of any better terminology to use it. It's not even really conspiracy theories. It's just like, oh, look at this. What do you think? And the first one is probably the funniest one, and that is the conspiracy theory that was going around on Friday or Thursday or something of last week, and I talked about it a little bit, where Joe Biden didn't actually break his ankle. That what happened was he was arrested, and the ankle boot that they put on him was concealing an ankle bracelet, because he's on house arrest. And that got sort of morphed into, well, Joe Biden, even if he becomes president, can't go and land in the country of Ukraine because they will arrest him immediately. All of this is nonsense. And let me explain something to you guys, because I think a lot of the people on our side don't really seem to understand how accusations work, okay? If I say to you, John Smith in the audience, that you are a child molester, and you say, no, I'm not. It's not your job to produce evidence to show that you're not a child molester. It is my job as the accuser to show evidence that you are a child molester. And if I am unable to show evidence that you are a child molester, then the accusation is not proven and is simply empty words, and it doesn't mean anything and shouldn't be taken seriously. So when someone says something silly, like Joe Biden didn't actually fall, that's an ankle bracelet on his ankle, and I say that's silly and implausible, your response to that shouldn't be, well, you need to show me some proof how it's not an ankle bracelet there. That's not how this thing works, okay? And if I'm not willing to do that, and I actually get kind of testy about that, because it's putting you're just being silly. You're just being silly, and it's kind of funny, but at the same time, it's frustrating because we're supposed to be on the same guy. Sorry, I didn't mean to hit the microphone. We're supposed to be on the same side, which means that we should be seeing the same sorts of things as being true. And besides the fact that, what difference does it make if Joe Biden has a hairline fracture on his ankle? Like, why is that? Why are we seeing pictures where the person's obviously flipped the picture to another side and saying, oh, he's wearing it on a different ankle now. Oh, what's up with that? What's up with what difference does it make, man? He's 78 years old. And oh, well, I don't really believe that he was chasing his dog and fell. I mean, really? Do you I have a dog. I can see totally me chasing my dog through the house, maybe not right after a shower, but getting her riled up and chasing her and trying to grab her tail and falling and hurting myself. But I'm also kind of clumsy. And maybe Joe Biden is too. He's also almost 80. So I don't see why this is even worth talking about, why I'm having to spend a second show mentioning this. But it's still out there, and it's still, the Twitterverse is still buzzing about it. That was kind of my favorite one. And it actually got replaced by the Harrison Deal thing. Now, this Harrison Deal, he died in a car crash. This is the one I mentioned earlier. He was dating the daughter of Governor Brian Kemp, and he was also working on the Loeffler campaign. I'm not sure if he was related to Nathan Deal, the former governor of Georgia, but it wouldn't surprise me if he was. I mean, these people are kind of incestuous in terms of politicians in high places. It's okay. It happens. But so it's bad enough that he died in this terrible car accident outside of Savannah in a city called Pooler. But the news media went and they took pictures, and the car is kind of burned up, and it's a bad situation. And people get on Twitter and immediately started saying that this poor kid was assassinated because of Brian Kemp. And again, it's a bad conspiracy theory because they can't really say why anyone would want to kill this kid, but just because Brian Kemp bad, I guess. I don't know. He is the new orange man for the right. Brian Kemp bad. And so I guess the way they're going to punish Brian Kemp is to kill his daughter's boyfriend, which I don't know. I'm not a father, but I can imagine if I had a teenage daughter, someone killing the boyfriend would probably be, not, you would never want that to happen, but maybe you're taking care of a problem. I don't know. I'm sure Harrison Deal was a perfectly good kid, and he doesn't deserve to be disrespected by people saying that he was assassinated as some sort of political operation. And perhaps the most insane. So this just kind of kept going over Saturday night and into Sunday morning, and by Sunday night, by Saturday night around 11, 12 o'clock, this had become a drone strike. So I guess I don't know if it was an American. Again, the details are kind of foggy because when you're just making crap up as you go along, you don't have to be extremely detailed. And so it apparently, instead of his car just getting in an accident, because that's what happens, it was a drone strike from apparently either a U.S. or a Chinese drone. We're not exactly sure, but we know that the U.S. is involved and China is involved and the deep state's involved. And instead of killing, I guess, Brian Kemp or something. I don't really know what the purpose of killing anyone for this thing would be, but instead of killing someone who actually can do something, or even Brian Kemp's wife or his daughter, let's kill somebody else who doesn't have anything to do really with anything, and let's kill him with a drone in Savannah, Georgia. Like, what's wrong with you people? What's wrong with and what's worse is the number of shares and likes and retweets, and it comes up on these little bogus websites that just, they're meant to get you to come in there and click in, and there's like 4 sentences there and all this. And I'm going to tell you, it's crazy. It's crazy, the things that some people believe in. And kind of related to that, it's not really a conspiracy theory, but I got into it a little bit with a fairly well-known person on Twitter on our side, supposedly. And he put this article up there saying that we now see, conservatives, I don't remember, I'm not going to say the exact headline, I don't remember it, number one, and I'm not going to highlight it, number two, I don't want to give any more publicity than it already got. But Kellyanne Conway, the former advisor to the president, Kellyanne Conway says she's going to work with the Biden administration, or offers to work with the Biden administration. So as soon as I see this article, as soon as I see this headline, I knew it was complete crap. Like, I know, look, you can say what you want about Kellyanne Conway. You can say you don't trust her because of who her husband is. I can honestly tell you, I have had my moments where I didn't trust her really because of who her husband was, maybe just because he hates Trump so much that it seems like a little too perfect. But Trump knew who her husband was, knew the dangers and the possibilities, kept her around anyway. She eventually quit the White House to go and raise her daughter, and yet she was still being invited to White House functions. So to me, that shows me how high, in what high regard Trump holds her. So I don't have any reason to doubt Kellyanne Conway. She's been a Republican operative for a very long time. And so I knew immediately when I saw a headline saying that she's offered to work with the Biden administration that was completely untrue. And sure enough, it took me about 30 seconds, and I found the interview, an article talking about the interview that she gave, in which she said she would be willing to work with future administrations. And so I get on this guy's Twitter and I say, look, this is false information. How can we ever expect to build a coalition of our own within our own space, within our own party and our own ideology, when we can't even deal in the truth? We're behaving just like leftists when we're just telling lies. And this guy, who, I don't know how much he really engages with people on Twitter, but he actually commented, like, where's the lie? Where's the lie? And I said, all right, well, here's the lie. Here's the lie. Let me tell you exactly what she said. She said she would be willing to work with future administrations. It's fair to assume that she's talking about future Republican administrations. She may even be talking about a future Trump administration. But she's not saying she was going to work with the Biden administration. And it's unfair to characterize what she said in that way. And of course, he never responded to me. And I asked him, like, so when I put it that way, is it worth the hatred that people are spewing at her on your page? This is the danger, right? We have a very irresponsible person on Twitter, supposedly from our side, ginning up the following. And I just have a screenshot. This is just 6 comments that I thought were the 6 most egregious consecutive comments. And the first one is from a user calling her a rat, Kellyanne Conway. Another says she's a fraud, or she's another fraud. Another one says Trump will be rid of all these disloyal a-holes in the second term. I'm sure he is taking notes. Another one, adrenochrome withdrawal must be a bitch. Another one calling her an ugly leaking bitch. Another one calling her a two-faced hag. Does this sound like some things that you should be saying to someone who was very loyal to Donald Trump for 4 years? Stood by him through almost everything that you could possibly imagine, got called every possible name you can imagine. Like she was called enough of this from the left to have someone in the name of conservatism and in the name of Donald Trump to caused this? Like, why in the hell did you not come out when I pointed out these comments? Why did you not come out and say, guys, you know what? Actually, my story that I put on there that was really only about like 4 lines of crap, of just generic BS about an interview that happened and just completely false. I retract that because you guys are taking this way too far. Kellyanne Conway was on our side. We don't have any reason to doubt her. Why couldn't you say that? Why couldn't you be honest enough to say that? And who out there is keeping people like this in check? Ben Shapiro's not doing it. Michael Knowles, Rush Limbaugh, none of these people are doing it because I guess maybe they're above these grifter types who are making these websites. I mean, Rush Limbaugh doesn't need to be talking about people like this. So I can do it. I'm more than happy to do it. Just because they're not talking about them doesn't mean these people don't have a very real effect on the world and on how we are perceived. In other words, the people who enjoy Donald Trump, who like Donald Trump, who want more Donald Trump and more people like Donald Trump, we're never going to get it as long as you are having people calling her a two-faced hag. People on our side. We've got to get this sort of thing under control, which leads me finally to probably the most egregious conspiracy theory. So the Kellyanne Conway thing really wasn't a conspiracy theory. It was just Republicans behaving badly. So-called Republicans. These guys are going to drop you like a dead cow or something as soon as Trump is off the scene. Okay, they're not going to vote. They're just not going to do it. But so far, as of right now, these are Republicans behaving badly. So the next one is this really ridiculous theory, and I went hard after these people on Twitter. So as the drone strike, I guess, stopped being interesting, as if a drone strike in the middle of Savannah or outskirts of Savannah is not interesting, then we got this photo started floating around. And even Scott Adams, the Dilbert guy I mentioned before, if you're not following Scott, definitely follow him. Even he is like, what? So a photo starts floating around on the internet. And just to describe this photo, it's obviously, it looks like it's almost a mailroom or something, but you're led to believe that it's a vote counting sort of situation. And you see this sort of concrete brick wall in the back, and it says Zone A, and you have some people kind of milling about in the background, and in the foreground you have these two ladies, both of whom are wearing face masks. One is, I guess she's got I don't know if you'd call it roots or whatever, but she's blonde, she's got long shoulder length hair, and she's blonde at the shoulders and kind of up to where her ears are. It starts becoming darker as it gets closer to her head. I think it's called bad roots or something. I don't want to insult her. Maybe that's her hair color. I don't know. It doesn't look bad to me, but I just know how women talk. So one of them is like that, and the other one is straight blonde. And the two photos, actually, the one that's in, so it's with another photo, and the other photo is the hearing in front of the Georgia legislature last week, where Giuliani basically asked them to appoint their own electors, and these two senators, Elena Parent and Jen Jordan, spelled Jordan, but I believe she pronounces it Jordan. These two were representing the Democratic Party, and I'm going to be honest with you guys, they were giving Giuliani hell. I mean, they really did a good job in terms, if we're just looking at things, trying to be as neutral as we can be, and just calling the balls and strikes here. I think they did a very good job in their rebuttal and their questioning of all of these things, and they raised some very good points. One that stuck out in my mind was apparently there's a process for duplication of ballots, and this was brought up in terms of these so-called pristine ballots that looked like they were just copies of each other. They also mentioned the fact that even if a ballot was copied, the counting machine wouldn't count it more than once because you've got the barcode and stuff on there. So I mean, they actually. And here's another thing about all of this is when you throw out all of these allegations, you can't just accept them as true, even though it's an affidavit. You have to start exploring other possibilities. And so this is what they did very, very well. And they really, really got under the skin of a lot of these types of people on Twitter and Facebook. These two ladies, Jordan and Parent. And so these two pictures are on top of each other. You see the top one in the voting room, and then the bottom one is in the Senate, and they're sitting next to each other in both of them. And of course, the implication at first, and it became even more explicit as time went on, was that these two ladies, these two state senators, were so interested in swinging this election that they themselves went down to the whatever the arena was where the Hawks play to count ballots. Okay, that's what these two state senators are so interested in this in a very fairly large state that they decided to go down themselves, put on their long sleeve T-shirt and their paper mask, and start counting ballots right alongside all the rest of the people. So I simply, this is one of those things where I just saw it and I'm like, no, it's not true. First of all, I can't really say that these two sets of women look alike. The one in the voting situation, and I'm being vague about that on purpose, the one in the voting situation actually has a different shaped head than Senator Jordan. She's got a much different shaped head. It's really the photo is too far away, but nevertheless, both of the photos they're both wearing masks, so they've got 3/4 of their faces covered, or I guess 2/3 of their faces covered. So all you can really see is eyes and forehead. I mean, you can't tell what anybody really looks like in that way anyway. In fact, I was kind of surprised the way they looked when I actually looked them up and saw their actual photos, their office photos, their Senate photos. I was surprised that they looked the way they were. They're actually older than they looked in these two in the Senate. Nevertheless, you have the other one who has this, as I said, this sort of two-tone hair. In the voting picture, the hair color goes up further towards her part, and in the Senate picture, the hair color is down further. And what some people were saying on Twitter is, yeah, that makes perfect sense, is that her hair would grow out and her roots were shown. Now, I'm not a woman, but I do grow hair. I don't know that any human being is capable of growing what appears to be about 10 inches of hair within a month, but okay, we'll go along with it. I'm sure there's an explanation that somebody's going to tell me that that's totally wrong. But I knew from the fact from the get-go, these were not the same people. And besides the fact that it was probably if they were to have done that, gosh, I keep hitting the microphone. If they were to have done that, I'm not sure that, yes, it was against the law, but I'm not exactly sure what the photo is actually depicting them doing. In other words, I mean, you have the two-tone hair. She's kind of holding some paper, but it's not exactly clear that it's ballots. And, all the sort of things that you would want to start questioning when you see a picture like this is what I was doing and what nobody else out there was doing. Like, as soon as this hit the thing, it was like, oh yeah, these two, they're guilty. They're going to Gitmo. They're getting hanged for treason. All of this stuff. It hit the fan, man, and people were sinking in. And I said, look, you can look at my Twitter, and I was like, these are not the same people. They don't look anything alike. And at first I started getting ignored. And then by Sunday, midday Sunday, I started getting, I found an actual link to the USA Today that was talking about vote counting in Pennsylvania. And lo and behold, these two women were on the photo for that vote counting thing. So I guess it's a video, and there was the concrete wall, and there was the Zone A, all of that. And so these two women were in Pennsylvania. So as Sunday went on, I was like, okay, finally somebody found this thing, figured out who these two people are, and are debunking this thing. Great, good news. So I start posting this link everywhere I can, and finally I get into it a little bit on a different issue with someone and I said something else was fake, and somebody replied back to me with this photo, the one that I'm talking about, of these two sets of women, and saying, well, I suppose you think this is fake too. And I was like, yeah, it's not, those are not the same people. It's from Pennsylvania. Here's the link. And so I looked at the thing that she commented on, and I realized she had sent me a link. So I go to the link, and it's another Twitter post. And what had happened was they decided since they realized they had been caught, since their story didn't match anymore, the people continuing this conspiracy theory, since the story didn't match anymore and that was demonstrated to not be Atlanta, what they're saying was these two state senators from Georgia actually went to Pennsylvania to count votes. And as if, I mean, come on. I mean, dude, is it outside of the realm of possibility that they went to Pennsylvania? I mean, not quite. But yeah, it's pretty unlikely, okay? And so this is what I'm talking about. Your conspiracy theory gets blown out of the water by actual evidence, and you just shift it. What you are telling me when you do this, when you do stuff like this, when you're talking about children being blown out of the freaking streets in the United States of America with a drone because of some unknown connection to China, you're not fighting for the truth anymore, okay? What you're doing is you are concealing the truth. You are actually lying. You are postponing what I believe to be inevitable now. And that is the very hard, very difficult, and very unpleasant truth that Joe Biden will most likely be inaugurated president on January 20th. I'm sorry. I hate it. Okay? And we're going to go a bit long today, all right? Just so you know. So don't expect me to wrap up anytime soon. I'm sorry that that's the truth that we all have to accept. I really am. Again, it breaks my heart. My heart is broken for Donald Trump because he deserved to be reelected. Of any president in my lifetime who deserved to be reelected, Donald Trump deserved to be reelected. Maybe Ronald Reagan was the only one who actually deserved and earned. And you could say genuinely that you were better off 4 years now than you were 4 years ago. I truly, truly believe that. But you're not helping the situation. You're not helping us get voter reform when you are pumping out these fake conspiracy theories, when you're pumping out pictures of women in Pennsylvania. And I got into it with them on this. I got into it because I said, again, this is not real. And the guy says, show me some evidence. And I said, no, that's not how it works. That's not how it works. You put this up there. You say that they're the same person. You say that they should be in Gitmo. You show the evidence. This photo is not convincing. So what you want me to believe is that that what's more likely is that two Georgia senators went up to Pennsylvania, Philadelphia on election night and got on the front line and was just counting ballots. That's what you want me to believe, rather than it's entirely possible for two middle-aged white women to kind of look similar when their faces are 2/3 covered. That's what you want me to believe. You want me to believe that this is actually them going to Pennsylvania to stuff the ballot boxes, as if they can't find enough people to stuff the ballot boxes in Pennsylvania. Oh, we need to get an alibi for them to that night. Where were they? It doesn't matter. It wasn't them, and it's beyond anything anyone should care about. It didn't happen, okay? We need proof. If you don't have proof, stop beating the dead horse. And let's start thinking of ways. Oh, I've got to cut the outro music. We'll just get a nice little taste of that. All right, let me cut it. Nope. Sorry. And we're going to keep going on. And I'm sorry about that. I'm just using this template, and I had the automation and where it fades in and then it fades back out, and it just was not popping up for me soon enough. But the bottom line here is that if you're having to make up these sorts of theories, and then once they're shot out of the water, you have to modify them to fit the outcome that you want them to have, you're desperate. You're desperate for the outcome, and I totally understand. I do. But we cannot be doing this anymore, okay? Because when I think back of the last 4 years, and I think about all the times I was called a member of Cult 45, and I think of all the times that I was referred to as an authoritarian, and all of these things, but just simply because I agreed with Donald Trump and I thought he was doing a good job as president. All of those times. And I think of all the people who told me that Trump voters are crazy and that I must be one of those, and that Trump voters they hate Mexicans and they're not attached to the truth. Trump voters just lie. I can't help but ask myself, are these the ones they're talking about? I mean, to me, it's a good question. Are these the people? The ones who are pushing this hoax because they're so sad and so upset over the fact that Donald Trump appears to have lost the election? If that's the case, then we're never going to win an election again. I mean, what the Republican Party will, because the Republican Party will adapt you people out of it. Okay? I need you to understand. So when we're talking about this political spectrum, right, of left and right, we're going to keep it at the one dimensional, right? It's just left and right, leftist and right. There was a study, and I need to dig it up, and I'm working on getting the website up and going, and so I can put stuff like this on it. But there was a study that showed how political ideologies have shifted over time. And it kind of moves back and forth, but the left, the Republicans and the Democrats have some space in between them. But during the Obama years, the left really shifted more to the left, and the Republicans shifted a little bit, but not really. And so the idea is the ideological gap between the two parties has expanded due to the Democrats moving more towards leftist ideologies, and you can see that borne out in the people they've elected, almost electing Bernie Sanders to be their nominee twice, electing AOC and all the various and sundry members of the squad. They have moved to the left, but the Republicans really haven't moved any more to the right or to the left. And part of the reason is because you have this MAGA coalition that has been able to keep the Republicans kind of in that space in terms of numbers. Well, if we don't stop lying to ourselves, if we don't stop being the party of just stupidity, and I don't use that word lightly, but these conspiracy theories that I've talked about are stupidity. If we don't stop being the party where people can just come in and make a Twitter account and get 15,000 followers out of the gate just by saying nothing but MAGA all day and I love my president, retweet if you do. If we're just going to be that party, then the Republicans will flush you out and you will be left with no representation. Do not fool yourselves into thinking that 74 million people are willing to follow you off the cliff, because they're not. They're just not. The populist strain that Donald Trump brought to bring the people on the fringes in, to make them feel represented, will be just as easily dismissed by future Republicans. And that's just the truth. And so if you want voting reform, forget it. It's not going to happen. Because nobody's going to believe you. And guess what? If you sit out the Senate runoffs, you're not going to need voting reform anyway, because they're going to win it fair and square. They're going to say, oh, look, the Georgia race wasn't rigged after all. People just didn't show up. And that is what they say about the 2020 election, and that's what they'll say about the 2021 runoff. So you've got to get engaged. And I get the people, this is the last thing I'm going to talk about today. I get the people who say, well, I can't stand the thought of Joe Biden being an illegitimate president. He wasn't elected. Okay, I get it. All right, I do. But I want you to think about this. There's an old maxim of law that's been going through my head today, and it comes from world famous, well, I don't know if he's world famous, but he's certainly famous in the Western legal stratosphere, and that is William Blackstone. And he came up with what was called Blackstone's ratio or Blackstone's formulation. And the idea is that it's better that 10 guilty men go free than one innocent man be convicted. All right? Think about that. This is a criminal law maxim. It is better for justice that 10 guilty men go free than one innocent man be convicted. Better that 10 O.J. Simpsons run free than one Richard Jewell be convicted. And our founders based our legal system largely on this idea. And it was very much an important thing to them, and that's why they have so many protections for criminal defendants in the Constitution, is because this is just sort of like, it's like a priori knowledge. Like if we have a sense of justice, we just automatically assume that we would rather see a guilty person go free than an innocent man behind bars. That's why the great DNA projects that go and they go try to free wrongly convicted people, that's why those are such worthy and worthwhile goals. And so I was thinking about that in terms of the election. And so I thought to myself, what you have with a criminal case like that, the idea is that a guilty person, if they're truly guilty, they will get some sort of cosmic justice, or they will eventually find themselves in trouble again and come back before the legal system and will get it right the next time. And so I was thinking about this in terms, like, that's the consequence of that. And so it's an injustice for sure in terms of the state law that was violated, in terms of the victim. It's an injustice. Just as a stolen election is an injustice to the American people and to the official or the candidate from whom the election was presumably stolen. And so I think about, okay, what if? What is the consequence of the guilty in the case of a campaign going free? Well, in the case of a campaign, Joe Biden will be up for re-election in 4 years. We can possibly deal with a lot of bad things that go on between now and then, depending on how bad his policies are. It's better if we have a Republican Senate to block some of those things. But nevertheless, he is up again in 4 years. Like, that's the ultimate relief valve, is if someone happens to get through all of the prescribed constitutional protections against a stolen election, that the ultimate relief is the fact that he comes up for re-election in 4 years. Truly, there's no more relief. And so what happens if a guilty man accused, O.J. Simpson, he was accused of a crime. I believe he was guilty. A lot of people believe he was guilty, and he apparently got away with it. He wasn't convicted of the 2 murders. What happened? What was the worst thing that happened? Well, he stayed quiet for a long time, and then he got into it with a guy who's supposedly stole memorabilia from him, and he got convicted and got sent away to prison for several years. To me, the idea of a criminal defendant getting away with a crime is kind of like, what's the worst that can happen? I mean, a criminal defendant, O.J. Simpson, could have very well gone and started killing other people. He could have gotten the idea that he can get away with things because he's O.J. Simpson. He could go and kill other people. He didn't. He did do another crime, but this was sort of a it's kind of seemed like a slimy deal anyway. So the election actually has a much more defined relief in that a re-election is going to come up soon. In fact, if the Congress were so inclined, they could decide that the election was stolen after they do an investigation that goes into March or April of next year. They could decide that the election was in fact stolen by Joe Biden knowingly, and they could remove him if they wanted to. So when I think of Blackstone's ratio, I wonder what would be better. Would it be better to have 10 fraudulent elections rather than one? What would be the bad thing, the thing that would be like like an innocent person being locked away? What is the consequence, or what is the worst option? And the truth of the matter is that I think that the worst option would be to have a state's votes overturned on shaky evidence. And the reason I say that is because the minute one of these states gets overturned, even though it's a protection, and it's certainly within the state's right to be able to do it, the minute one of these gets overturned, we're talking about all-out civil war in our country. You are. And so I'm wondering if the answer that the founding fathers would say, it was better that 10 elections be stolen than one election lead to civil war. Because again, we have the remedy in 4 years. We have a congressional remedy if we want to remove him. I don't want to see Donald Trump elected or inaugurated in the midst of a civil war. I don't want him to have to declare martial law to tamp down the protests that would be very much understandable if 3 or 4 states ignored the apparent will of the voters. Fraud or not. I know a lot of people are going to disagree with me on that, but I ask you, how many of you are willing to send your children to fight in such a war? How many of you are willing to fight that war yourselves? I know a lot of you keyboard warriors think you're going to do it. But I don't think you will. In fact, I think it'll be almost nobody. Because the very cowards that you accuse the rest of us of being simply because we don't agree with you, simply because we don't buy your nonsense conspiracy theories, that's actually some projection on your part. You're the cowards because you won't accept the truth. The truth is, and I explained this the other night, but I'm going to do it again. I saw a graphic, and he doesn't intend for this to be used in the way I'm using it, I don't think. And he says, we have not found a president-elect yet, but you know how many bad votes we found? We found 600,000 in Pennsylvania. We found up to 330,000 in Georgia, 400,000, 200,000, 110,000. Arizona, 400,000. That sounds like a lot. It's probably enough to win the Electoral College, assuming they all break the way they need to break. But at the same time, Joe Biden won the popular vote by apparently about 8 million votes. I believe that those 8 million are probably mostly a result of the Democrats running up the score in California. I think they've been doing that for some time. But you tell me how to convince 330 million people that Joe Biden didn't actually win. Even though you're my cat. Hey boy. You tell me how to convince 330 million people that Joe Biden didn't actually win the presidential election. This is the power of the left, and they have it because they've got their stuff together. They stick together while we eat our own. They stick together while we eat our own. We're over here calling Kellyanne Conway an old hag for no real reason, just because some Yahoo who wants you to click on his site and surf through like 15 pop-up ads just to see the little 4 lines that he thought that the story deserved. These people need to be gotten rid of, okay? We need to hold together and get rid of those people. The Kellyanne Conways who have been loyal to Trump, who have been on our side. We don't need to get rid of those guys. We don't need to get rid of Ted Cruz. I don't think we need to get rid of Brian Kemp. All of these people have been loyal to what we've wanted. Brian Kemp took all kinds of hell from the left for opening Georgia up during the COVID thing, which is, I understand, still going on. But guys, he's part of what we're doing. So I don't know exactly what has happened in your minds that you feel like Brian Kemp needs to start having shots taken at him, or Kellyanne Conway, what she's done to make you think that she needs shots taken at her, or Ted Cruz, or Cocaine Mitch. I mean, God knows, Cocaine Mitch, man, he came through big time, MVP. If Donald Trump has an MVP anywhere, it's Cocaine Mitch McConnell. Trump's effect on the United States will be felt for the next 60 years and beyond because of the 300 plus federal judges that Donald Trump was able to appoint, and because of the 3 Supreme Court justices that Donald Trump was able to appoint, and Mitch McConnell got them through the Senate. I don't want to hear this nonsense about cowardly Republicans, because the cowards are the ones who are too afraid to accept the reality of the situation, that this is beyond repair. The Supreme Court still meets on Tuesday, but I personally, and I put a Twitter thread up, you can see it. If I'm wrong, you can rub it in my face. I would rather be wrong, telling you the truth as I see it, giving you my truthful opinion, which is I don't see the Supreme Court overturning any state's votes. Why? Because the president ain't a king, people. He's a person just like anybody else, and he will be back up for election in 4 years. In the meantime, we own a majority of state legislatures all over this country. Why are we not using them? Like now, instead of calling on Kelly Loeffler to demand blah, 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 whatever kind of bullcrap Lynn Wood wants her to say, as if she's a hand puppet. No, you shouldn't say it. What you need to be saying is, legislature of Georgia, legislature of Pennsylvania, you need to fix this so that it doesn't happen anymore. We need in-person voting. We need no more mail-in voting. We need voter ID. We need biometrics. If we've got to stick our hands in some purple paint so that we know that we've voted and nobody can let us vote again, then by God, let's do it. This is 2020 in the United States of America. We've put people on the moon. Yesterday morning, we had a spacecraft land. You know where that spacecraft had gone? To an asteroid. And it came back with samples from the asteroid. It went up and it came back. And we can't figure out how to vote? I'm as angry as you people are about that. But it's too late. It's too late. It's not going to happen. I'm sorry. I need you all to hang together. I need you all to come together. I need you all to trim the fat. If you see these Twitter bot people out there, and I don't know if they're real. I don't know if they're real or not, honestly. I have my doubts. But if you see them, cut them out. Cut them out. Call them out. If you see a lie, I don't care if it's on Twitter. I don't care if you think it's coming out of my mouth. You call it out. You call it out. It's not eating our own to tell the truth. It's high time we start acting like adults as Republicans. We had a winner in the White House, Donald Trump, for 4 years. And many of us on the streets have spent 4 years owning libs on Twitter and drinking liberal tears and all of this, and all of it's good fun and all that. But it scares me to think of the undercurrent that grew up under this thing, this QAnon, this whatever this ideology is that makes people think that Brian Kemp is going to end up in Gitmo. All right? Somebody explain that one to me, because it's not going to happen. It scares me that an undercurrent has developed, that when an election doesn't go our way, that it is even in the line of possibilities that we should declare martial law. I didn't get on board with the Republican Party again after a few years away from it. I didn't get back on board with it because I thought we were authoritarians. I got back on board with it because I thought we were the best way to achieve the sort of freedom that human beings deserve to have. I got on board because I thought this was the best way of doing it, and because I thought libertarians were loony. Not little L libertarians, but big L Libertarian Party. I thought they were Looney Tunes. Now I'm starting to think a lot of you are Looney Tunes, but as I said, don't get too full of yourself, because you're going to be flushed if you don't come around. If you want to keep insulting people, if you want to keep calling people names and all of this other stuff, and you want to just basically bury your head in the sand and pretend that drones are running around Savannah, Georgia, shooting kids off the ground, then by all means you will be thrown out of the party. You'll be discarded like yesterday's trash. And the rest of us adults who are interested in fighting socialism and Marxism and communism and fascism from the left, those of us who are interested in making sure that you're able to go to college and speak your mind, you're able to go to work and speak your mind, that you're even able, by God, to go to church on Sunday, the rest of us who want to make sure that your vote is actually secure, but we're going to do it in the right way without calling up the National Guard, the rest of us, we're going to be trying to solve these problems, and we're going to be the line of defense to keep you thankless and ungrateful people safe from the kinds of things that we see and we know are coming at the hands of the people you have enabled. So by all means, sit out the runoff. Let Chuck Schumer take the wheel in the Senate. Let's make sure that we have a Democrat in the White House and a Democrat in the Senate and a Democrat in the House, and they can just pass bills all day long and no Republican can ever say boo about it. Don't come crying to me. Don't come crying to me. You're willing to do all of that because you think, what? That two ladies couldn't possibly look like two other ladies 7 states away? You think that what? Because maybe Trump supporters didn't early vote in the same numbers that Biden's people did? Was there fraud? Probably, yes. Was there enough? No. No, I don't believe there was. And I think that on more than likely Tuesday, tomorrow, I guess, when the Supreme Court hears this, that I will be confirmed as being right. I don't enjoy having to bring you people into what I think is reality, but it's, you know what? It is what it is, because if this is the battle, then this is the battle. And I'm going to call out lies wherever I see them. It just so happens I don't really follow any leftist accounts on Twitter and in the news. I actually, I have that Washington Post subscription. I look at it from time to time, and when I see something ridiculous, I call it out. So I don't want you to think I'm picking on you. But guys, what's going on right now is important. It's important. It's too important to leave in the hands of chance. I don't mean like Chance the Rapper or something like that. I mean Chance, like Fate. So that's my message for you today. And I hope that you will understand that the things that I'm saying are in love. I'm trying to correct some issues that I see that are threatening what we are trying to accomplish here. And as for Donald Trump, if he comes up short, I will be the first one to donate to Donald Trump 2024. And I will donate the maximum every single year if I can afford it. So, this was a deep show, a heavy show. I'm sorry that it's had to go this way, but we've got to keep it together, folks. I mean, we just gotta. The battle is not just Donald Trump. The battle is our republic. The battle is our freedoms. The battle is everything we stand for. Donald Trump is not the guy. He's not Jesus of America. American values are bigger than any one person, and it's exciting that somebody like Donald Trump came along and embodied those values in such a way. But now it's on us to embody the values in that way. And if Donald Trump comes back and we think he's the good guy to put in charge, then great, we'll do it. So that's it for today. I really need to cut it off. I'm going on way too long. I've probably lost many people's interest. I think since we've already heard the outro music, I'm probably going to put on this nice little Christmas ditty at the end here that I played on over the weekend. I don't know. Maybe I've got a different one. Nevertheless, whatever. Thank you for listening. I really do appreciate it. I hope that you will consider, I will ask you, will you please subscribe to my show? Will you please subscribe to my show? Please follow me on Twitter. Please follow me on Parler. I'm over there as well. Subscribe to the podcast. We're on iTunes. We're on Spotify. We're on Deezer. We're on Acast. We're on Amazon Music. We're on there's all of them. I don't remember them all. I'm putting these what they call audiograms on YouTube, so every one of these shows they're all going over there as well. So you can find them there and you can share them with your friends. Maybe one day, if you'd like, I can turn it into a full camera TV type show and do the broadcast and the camera YouTube to make it a little bit more interesting. But right now, this is a one-man operation. I'm doing it all by myself. I'm not a sound engineer. I'm not a videographer. I'm just a lawyer. I used to be a paramedic. I don't know any of this stuff. So I'm doing the best I can. As I mentioned, I think earlier, I'm putting a website together and trying to make it to where it links to the show, and you'll get a stack of stuff, and you'll see my blog posts and things that I'm writing for Substack and everything. So I'm trying to do better. I'm trying to give you guys more things, but it's a one-man show, so I apologize if it's amateur hour, because it genuinely is. I'm not getting paid for any of this. So thank you again so much for listening. If you didn't check out The Weekend Repose, definitely do. We talk about simulation theory. And thank you. I appreciate you so much. And until next time, good luck, God bless, and be safe. And that was not the right order, but you know what I mean. Until next time, thank you.